What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. So diving back into our scouting breakdowns, we're still on our tackle class, looking at our fourth tackle in no particular order, but just kind of following one of the generic rankings I'm seeing for how these guys are stacked. But today we had a pretty interesting one, arguably the most unique tackle that we've seen so far in JC Latham out of Alabama. And I say that because from a size perspective and what he brings physically, he stands out from the rest of his class. There's plenty of other guys, Olufashanu, Joe Alt, even Fuaga has some standout traits, some standout physical elements to their build, but this looks like the most well put together offensive lineman that you'll find out there, especially at his size, 6'6", 360 pounds. I mean, when I thought about football growing up, everything was physicality and kind of that domination and fear factor, right? This is a guy that you want walking off the bus in the Super Bowl and having the defensive end on the other side have to figure out how he can shorten his day up quite a bit. Otherwise, he's going to be on his back fighting for his life in the trenches. Now, with JC Latham, you're still talking about a very young kid as well, which plays perfectly into hopefully boosting his draft capital a bit. But if you want to talk about trying to continue to mold a ball of clay, the younger a guy is, the better. 21 years old, former 5-star recruit, was the top tackle in his 2021 class. And this is, by the way, after starting out his high school career as a defensive end, spending the last 2 years as a left tackle, compared to other people that may have been playing that position for years on end already. So I did find that particularly interesting. He also has a basketball and a track background, and I couldn't find it, but I know I had saw on some other scouting breakdown videos him running like 100-meter relay or something crazy. So to see it, he wasn't 6'6", 360 at the time, but I think he was still in the 300-plus range, which is crazy. But got a chance to start out getting some snaps his freshman year, played right guard, has natural advantages in pass protection and run blocking, again, just due to his natural build, the length. This is a guy that from a physical standpoint, he's going to be closer to the elite mark in a lot of categories than many of these other linemen in this particular class. Now, he does particularly stand out as a guy that may be a right tackle only prospect in the draft, and we'll talk about why, or at least in his pro career. But to his credit, he's seen more true pass blocking sets than most tackles in this class. So for a guy that is going to be a little bit more run dominant than more of a pass protector, this is a guy that you can feel comfortable with what you've seen out of him so far. So let's go ahead and dive into what makes him one of the top tackles in this particular class. Explosive and violent off the snap, right? We talked about the physical build, dominating that intent to instill fear in opponents. He's all about that. From a mental perspective, he wants you to already shut down before the whistle even starts to kick the ball game off. And he plays like it. Explodes off the snaps. He's very violent with guys. If he can put you in the dirt, he plans to. Very powerful in the run game. Uses his rotation and length and torsion to be able to draw out as much power as that 6'6" frame will allow him to do, which not all guys are generally capable of. Anchors well against power when he's using his length, and he's able to actually lock onto defenders. This is one of the, I would say actually the first guy in this particular class where you can say the grip strength is a factor with a guy like JC Latham. If he gets into you in between them shoulder pads and he locks you in, that's a wrap. That's set. That particular passing play is done for the defender, right? Solid knee bend and leverage for his size, a continued trend that we're seeing from these top tackles. Good sense of timing and pass protection, has a good center of gravity to kind of keep his base aligned. Hip flexibility is good enough when we're covering, which, keep in mind, these 6'6" behemoths and stuff, they're not going to move like the average man and stuff that you'll see on tape from a lot of, basic sized or average sized tackles, right? But these guys in this class are making it look a little easy. Good footwork and pass protection. Understands angles when he's trying to cut off rushers. His hand punches are extremely deadly, right? Again, this gets back to the viciousness, the physicality that he likes to play with. It doesn't get much better than this. Not only are they vicious and violent right at the point of attack, but when you want to talk about having to reset handwork and stuff, he's able to get right back to delivering those brutal punches. Fluid in his reach blocks and being able to seal the backside. So for us in particular, where we play a zone concept and we do like to have a lot of those reach blocks and sealing the backside and opening up cutback lanes and such, you can feel comfortable with JC Latham in that perspective. Kind of a plus that he was in that Alabama program because they run more of a multiple scheme, run blocking schematic. So helps us out a bit that we've seen enough of that on tape. Good spatial awareness and anticipation when he's passing off stunts. Has elite ability working with his guards on double teams when he's creating space and again handling some of that stunt work. Lighter feet than I expected as a pass protector at his size. Flashes independent hand technique to force defenders to adjust as well. So there was a few times on tape I've seen, and this came after some other guys pointed it out. You can literally see him almost handling two guys at once when it comes to rushers coming his way in certain situations where they may have gone unaccounted for, right? Which is extremely impressive in any regard by anybody that can do it. Now, some of the things that aren't the best on tape for a guy like JC Latham. Now, not the most fluid mover in space. Shouldn't be a surprise for all of the physical ability that's going to make him a punisher on your offensive line. And by the way, when it comes to thinking about kind of what separates a lot of these guys apart, right? JC Latham, he kind of feels like he's in a third tier, right? I would say Fashanu and Alt are in tier 1. You can argue Talise Fuaga being in tier 2, depending on how you feel about his pass protection. And then you would start to see these guys like JC Latham and the rest of the guys that are going to be coming behind him in this tier 3 range. But he's not going to be the most fluid mover in space. To be expected, right? 360 pounds, he moves it around very nice, but still, it's going to be a bit of a laboring situation for any guy at this size, right? And we're familiar with this with Mekhi Becton. We've seen arguably his worst run blocking on tape this year, where once he got to that second or third level, he looked gassed or out of place and different things like that. Similar situation here, obviously not to the same degree, but nonetheless. He'll struggle on the island when he needs to rotate and flip his hits to seal, right? Again, taller, heavier guys are going to struggle with a lot of these speed rushers, especially guys that know how to kind of set things up. You'll see him lurch and overextend during the run game on occasions. Vertical sets. This is the thing that mostly will stick out about what you need to be concerned with. A lot of this can be alleviated with scheme, or if an offensive line knows how to specifically nullify those kind of situations that he'll be in. But the vertical sets need work, right? He can get opened up to allow a lot of inside counters. Doesn't always have the best angle. And again, with the hip rotation and flexibility to kind of get to where he needs to be as quick as he should against certain people. Rushers with a plan can get him off balance when they're attacking laterally. He's not a guy that's going to suffer from, push and pull techniques per se, but you might get him on a cross chop and arm rip. Wider alignments are going to be a struggle for him, right? So again, I mentioned this was a few other guys. This is something that maybe he gets on an expedited path with if somehow he ends up on the Jets roster, since we know we like these particular situations for ourselves. And along with that, his pass depth in those situations against wider alignments are going to come into question. So just something to be aware of. You'll see him bear hug when he's in a recovery situation, right? Speaking to that fact is that he had 12 penalty flags in 2022. I believe he picked up 7 more in the 2023 season. You'll see his effort die out at the second level. Kind of already mentioned that, but this is more of a conditioning issue, again, with his size and stature. You kind of expect it, but something that can definitely be improved upon. And then you can see him dip his head in the run game, especially when he's working angle drive blocks, which is something you wouldn't expect to see, especially at his size and stuff. He's not going to have too many guys where he needs to, kind of lock the head in, I guess. But generally what's going to happen is he'll dip his head, the vision's going to go, somebody can zoom across his face mask, make a tackle that they really shouldn't have. And then one other small concern, which shows up not only just in pass protection, I guess, but sometimes you'll see it in run protection. Guys can get a little bit more movement on him than I expected. Generally, it should never happen, right? And it's not a situation where you want to say never. But at his size, his ability, the raw power and the extra power he can actually bring when everything's working, right? You don't expect a guy like this to lose ground really ever. It crept up on tape a little bit more than what I would have expected to see. So just something to be aware of. That's a kink that we'll have to figure out how to identify and properly coach out of his game. But ultimately, this guy looks like gold, right? When it comes to, I would compare him more out of all of the tackle guys we've covered so far to Fuaga, right? Elite run blocker guy, pass protection is solid enough with improvement ability, depending on the situation he goes into. The plus for him that may put him over a guy like Fuaga will be the size factor and the strength. I think he's a bit stronger than a guy like Fuaga will be. Fuaga's probably a little bit more ferocious, which is crazy, but it's kind of your flavor, your choice. The Alabama program kind of helps lean some credits to him as well. But in terms of comps, there were some interesting ones here. Evan Neal, I guess the game kind of looks similar enough considering the size and everything, but not a great name to hear considering how Evan Neal's pro career has gone so far. Anthony Davis is another, and then Trent Brown is another one that has seen obviously being relegated to the right side, however. But this is a guy that you can strike big with, right? Consider this. I think in almost every mock draft that I've seen so far between the big guys, the Mel Kipers, the Tom McShays, Bucky Brooks, etc., you're seeing like 6 to 8 tackles go, right? In recent years, we've heard a lot of these pro guys talk about the deficit of offensive line talent, right? You used to go from having a quarterback and at least 1 or 2 tackles go in the top 3 to 5 picks consistently. And for the last couple of years now, realistically, that's been really hard to find and make a case for. So things are coming back around now. Obviously, it's not like we're talking about all top 5 picks here with these guys. But knowing that you have 6 to 8 that are going in the first round, it's going to make for some interesting decisions for the New York Jets for sure, especially when you want to talk about trade back scenarios. For Latham specifically, I keep seeing him go in like that 16 to 18 range. So who knows if the Jets would drop back that far, presented whatever happens in front of them. But ultimately, let me know what you guys think about JC Latham, how he fits on the Jets, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.